Hello and welcome back to Visiting Dugout. I am Crystal O'Keefe. I have my wonderful friend Aaron back this season to chat about the A's. If you are unfamiliar with him, Aaron, please maybe just reintroduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Cameron. I have been an A's fan for an embarrassing long time. In fact, Crystal, I saw your post yesterday on Blue Sky about an upcoming anniversary class reunion.
Yeah.
And in response, I won't say how many years, but in response, I'll just say that I've been an A's fan since 1981 when I was 8 years old. So I'll let you and your listeners do the math on that. But yeah, I've been with the squad since the Billy Martin days and the Billy Ball, Billy Bean days,
Mm-hmm.
and now this weird dyspeptic, homeless period of Sacramento. So still on board and still happy to be with you and happy to talk all things A's.
Yeah, we just on another podcast I do with Colleen Sullivan called Dugout of History. We ended last season with a like 5-part Billy Martin episode and everywhere he's been because he had quite the historic busy career. And then we opened the season talking about Ricky Henderson because it was only right, especially after he had just passed. So we had been very A's focused for 7 episodes in total, which was a lot of fun though.
Well, cheap plug. Your episode 2 on the Ricky aired about a week ago, and it's been excellent so far. So if you like what we're going to be talking about here, go listen to that. I'll
Yeah.
cheap plug yourself on your own podcast here.
Thank you. No, learning about Ricky, I mean, I already knew a lot about him. I followed Ricky, I loved him, but kind of diving deep into the Ricky lore and what it was like, it's so much fun. And same with Billy Martin. They were both just characters
Yeah.
and so much fun and just so good for baseball. Both of them were so good for baseball. So, anyway, bad for baseball. What's new with the A's?
Now that is a segue. For anybody who can't see, I've got my awkward shirt on. It's in the script of the athletics that they've been wearing on the jerseys for the last 40 years, and it's a pretty accurate adjective for what's going on with all things A's. It's been a lot. The last 12 months, the last 36 months. Hell, the last 40 years have been a lot. So they're playing in Sacramento. They're playing at Sutter Health Park in West Sacramento, and this is the end result of ownership. Rob Manfred, his cartel of owners, the 30 owners that approved it. It was a systematic and unfortunate killing of the Oakland A's, and it's shameful and it's embarrassing and it's frustrating for fans like myself to see all of this happen. There remains questions about Las Vegas, if Las Vegas is even going to ever come to fruition. They're supposed to break ground sometime in the second quarter of 2025, but there are very real questions whether A's owner John Fisher has the bankroll to make it happen. So they're playing in a minor league park. It is absurd. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing, but it's where they decided to drop anchor for the next 3 to 4 years. So everybody is kind of whistling past the graveyard, pretending this is fine and dandy. When I was there for opening night in West Sacramento, and it is far from fine. It is far from dandy, and it's a very shameful black eye for Major League Baseball and for its fans and for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I know we talked last year that I made the pilgrimage out to Oakland before they were out of the Coliseum because it was still on my list of parks to see. And I said, well, we got to get out here now because we're not going to have this opportunity. And it was wild because the vibes in the park were still pretty positive. I mean, it was like a Tuesday afternoon game. The weather was gorgeous and the fans were having so much fun. And I'm just like, why are we doing this to this fan base? The team has had a lot of difficulties, and now you're just putting out a big middle finger to your entire fan base by moving them out of Oakland in the first place. And it was so frustrating. And I feel for you guys. I mean, as someone who deals with a terrible owner on a daily basis with the White Sox, what they're doing with the A's is just despicable.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's been a long running narrative that the fans didn't support the team in Oakland when that was never the case. There are 1,000,001 reasons why attendance has lagged behind some of the other franchises, and first and foremost was the ballpark.
Yeah.
The Oakland Coliseum was a bit of a challenging place to draw fans to. It was older, and it was not like the newer ballparks. And quite frankly, you had ownership actively tearing down the ballpark verbally and dissuading fans from coming. And over the course of years and decades, it worked. And, you had a team that drew nearly 3 million fans in 1990, draw a fraction of that by the time they finally moved out of the Coliseum. And again, there's a million reasons why all of that came to be. But I'm sure you saw at the last game in Oakland, September of last year, they drew 46,000 people to what it was essentially a funeral on a Thursday afternoon, and it was an emotional, heart-wrenching day. But it really showed that community really cared about that team. That community really banded around that team and wanted them to stay. And again, ownership was so dead set on getting them out of town, to say nothing of the decades of players coming, players going. It's just a lot for a fan base to be expected to continue to support. And unfortunately, this was the inevitable end game for all of that.
Mm-hmm. And then I went to Vegas. I was just there in October, and I was in an Uber ride, and I think I was probably wearing like a White Sox shirt or something to that effect. And I was talking to the driver, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to go by where they're supposed to put the field? It's on our way." And I was like, yeah, sure. I'd love to see it. But he was even very skeptical of the idea that they were coming. And they were like, I don't think they're actually going to end up here. And I don't know what's going to happen to this place. Like even the city of Vegas is just kind of like, really? And Vegas is a terrible spot for sports. I know the Golden Knights do really well, but they're kind of like right on the strip.
Right.
So yeah, there's going to be more attendance, whereas this ballpark is not, it's not in a great spot. That's not going to attract tourists. It's like close to Circus, and that is one of the sketchiest hotels in Vegas.
No, you're not wrong. The Golden Knights were a perfect storm, right? An expansion team that were great right away. A winter sport that worked, right? My comparison for the A's is always been the Raiders. The Raiders left Oakland, moved to Las Vegas, and their games draw about 80% visiting fans.
Yeah.
But it works because they only play 8 or 9 home games a year. It bleeds into the winter. The games are on the weekends. Fans can make a long weekend sojourn over it and have a good time, go to the game, fly home. You just are not going to convince me, Crystal, that no knock on, I'm just picking a random team here, that the Milwaukee Brewers fans are going to fly to Vegas in August for a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday series. They're just not. There'll be interest. There'll be a novelty. There'll be that new car smell for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe. But it's not going to last. Vegas is famously a Dodgers town anyway. And I just think that this is all pie in the sky. And even if it does work, what you're going to end up having is a bit of a Harlem Globetrotters, Washington General vibe, where the A's are hosting all of these marquee teams whose fans travel well, Chicago teams, LA teams, New York teams, and they're expected to kind of be the punchline, be the punching bag for these good teams. And it's, again, I keep coming back to shameful to describe it all, but there's no other way. It's just this is an absolute abject embarrassment, and Major League Baseball should be ashamed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see it right now. We have 2 teams without homes because of what, happened down in Florida. So you have two homeless teams this season because you've let two ballparks fall in such disrepair, and you've allowed owners to not care. So now you have these two homeless teams who are kind of a joke right now in Major League Baseball, and it sucks because I love the A's. I have no ill will towards the A's. They have really fun players, and like I said, we had a blast at that game. We had so much fun. Stomper had to hide my shirt because I was wearing the Cell shirt, and I was like, I'm banding together with these fans because I hate John Fisher and I'm not even from here. He had to cover my shirt so I could take a picture with him. But I very proudly, like right in the when you walk in and they have that that massive athletics kind of backdrop before you head into the stadium, I very just proudly, the little peace sign with my Cell shirt in front of it. And I was like, screw you, John Fisher, you suck. You were bad for baseball.
Well, now Stumper is walking the exceedingly narrow concourses at Sutter Health Park in Sacramento, and I was there on opening night at the end of March, and it was like 14,000 rubberneckers, right? Just everybody wanting to see, oh, okay, how are they going to pull this off? How are they going to take this minor league park? And to be clear, it's a very nice minor league park, but to see Major League Baseball cameramen like with masking tape taped off on the concourse because there's no camera wells. That's where they have to set up, and the fencing in the outfield doesn't connect. This is like low hanging fruit. You would think that the River Cats, the team that's there, or A's ownership could address, but it's amateur hour. Yesterday, the New York Met player got hurt, and they brought a golf cart out. It ran out of gas on the field. They had to push it off the field. And you see all of this, and it's just like, what are we doing? At what point does somebody feel a modicum of shame about any of this? Because it's just like, wow. And the locals in Sacramento, they're very tepid. They're very distrustful of John Fisher. They know who he is, and there's just not a really good vibe there. It's all of this it's just a bummer. And I'm not going to be, Debbie Downer for the next 30, 35 minutes, I swear, but just all of this in particular it's just so unfortunate, and it's just so unnecessary. And they're just determined to shoot themselves in the foot. And I just will never understand that.
No, this is why I was really excited to record this episode, especially with you, because I want people to just air out their frustration, because it's just, it just makes my blood boil. So I can't imagine like actually really following the team like A's fans.
Yeah, Crystal, it's funny because I still follow the team. I'm still consider myself a fan. The overwhelming majority of people that I've connected with in the online community, the social media community, they've jumped ship. And I don't say that as a pejorative. I don't say that casting judgment on them. I get it. Yeah. They've chosen another team, or they've abandoned Major League Baseball altogether. And I fully understand that. For me, it comes down to two things. The first is the players who didn't ask for any of this nonsense. And the A's, it's just weirdly timed that they have a pretty young, interesting, exciting team. Lots of real fan-friendly guys that you can hitch a wagon to. And secondly, for me, again, I've been a fan since the early 80s. This team and Major League Baseball have wrapped me in a blanket during some of the darkest times of my life. Baseball's always been there. So for me, it's hard to pull that ripcord and abandon it. I don't see myself doing the Vegas thing just because of what we discussed earlier, but man, they're fun. It really is a fun team. I'm looking forward to kind of getting into the series with the White Sox with you, because there's some genuinely intriguing guys on this team. If you can squint, you can see a contender, maybe not this year, but 2026, 2027, you can kind of see the pieces kind of coalesce and come together.
Yeah, I agree. So before we do jump into the series, and I know there's not a whole lot of spending involved, but what was your off season like for the A's? I mean, who came in? Who were you really looking forward to?
It was an unrecognizable off season, Crystal. They spent money. And I've got to preface this by saying they were forced to spend money. The
Yeah.
players union, I think they already have an existing grievance from 5 or 6 years ago against them. So they were forced to spend money. They signed Luis Severino from the Mets. They gave him, I believe, 3 years, $67 million. The third year is a player option, which was mind blowing. Now I understand that Severino, he's not a tippy top ace, but it's the largest guaranteed contract the A's have ever handed out. And for your older listeners, Eric Chavez held the record before that. So it's been a while since the A's have spent money. But he was automatically installed as the number one guy. So that kind of set the tone. They acquired Jeffrey Springs from the Rays. He was coming off pretty significant injury, but he's been installed as the number two guy. They extended Brent Rooker. They extended Lawrence Butler. These were unheard of financial moves that again, for A's fans of a certain age, of a certain vintage, it's just like, where the hell was this 10 years ago, 15 years ago? But on the other side of the coin, it's one, a sop to the players union to say, hey, look, we're spending money. And two, they got to get butts and seats in Sacramento, right? So they've got to show a commitment to the organization, to the payroll. So it's been weird trying to get all of these pieces together. Jose Leclerc's another guy they signed, former closer from the Rangers. So I can't say it's been 35 years since my team spent real money in free agency. We're talking like the late 80s, early 90s. So it's been a bit of an adjustment, and I think the pieces are still trying to kind of fit. There's a little bit of mismatched parts, I think, on the roster right now. But yeah, man, the offseason was encouraging. That's probably the best word I could use to describe it.
I was thrilled. I loved Lawrence Butler. I think he is so much fun to watch. So with him and with Brent Rooker, I was very excited when I did read that they got their money, because they are both very fun to watch. And Luis Severino is a great grab for you guys. I loved him as a Met. So
he has actually really stepped up as the leader of that rotation. And I don't say that in like the cliched way. You look in the dugout during his starts or during his off days, and pitchers are always around him, talking to him, picking his brain, it seems like, gravitating towards him. And it's great to see. This is a team that was very, very young and, just kind of skating by with, grit and gumption. They needed somebody. They need somebody to kind of, for the young kids to kind of point to and look to and talk to. And Severino, to his credit, has embraced that 100%, and it's tremendous to see. So hopefully it's one of those things that can kind of build on, bring the young kids along, because they've got some intriguing pitchers in the pipeline. So while you kind of wait for those kids to develop and kind of work with the squad you have now, guys like Severino are going to be critical to just kind of keeping the chemistry straight, keeping the glue together, and keeping this team on the right track.
The White Sox have that right now. We have Martin Perez, who is our vet, and then we've got babies. I mean, they are just newborn babies out on the mound this season. But I've been watching a lot of interviews. They do a lot of sideline reporting right now, and it seems like every single time they interview one of these young pitchers, they're like, I just look up to Martin. Somebody, Davis Martin, said he was Martin Jr. And I was like, this is precious, because I love Martin Perez, always have, always will. So to know that he's there and he's kind of building these guys, and he's doing a great job. Our starting rotation is great. It's everything else is bad. So one last question before we move to the series. You mentioned a contention window, maybe next year, maybe a year after, but how are you feeling, at least heading into this series, with what you've got on the field right now?
I gotta say they've played very strange baseball this year, and I say that because you may have heard their home ERA is close to 6. Their road ERA is under 4. Obviously, small sample size. They played less than 10 games, both at home and on the road as we record this. So I don't necessarily want to put too much stock in it. But their games at Sacramento have just been bizarre to watch. And honestly, I would say to you and your listeners, if you've got the package, if you've got the extra innings or MLB.TV, watch a game in Sacramento, because the A's, they look like they're still trying to figure out the home ballpark. They look wildly uncomfortable. And I'm not one of these body language experts, but they look very uncomfortable, especially on defense, trying to figure out the caroms and the ricochets of the walls. The fact that the foul territory went from the forest they had in Oakland to like this tiny little strip of land in Sacramento. And, you'll see them struggle at times. And to the naked eye, little slumped shoulders, kind of making the sour look on their faces. I get the feeling they're a little more frustrated with this arrangement than they're letting on. Before the season started, I had this team predicted to win about 75 games, which would be, I think, about a 6-game improvement over last year. If everything broke right, I could see flirting with 500. I will say this much: heading into this White Sox series, I have full confidence in saying I think this is a team that's going to play a lot better on the road this year than at home. And for A's fans out there, and unfortunately for you, Crystal, this series is going to be in Chicago. So I think the A's will have at least a fighting chance against the Sox.
All right. Well, we're going to take a very quick break to pay bills, and then we will come back to what the series will look like. All right. And we are back. So let's start breaking down this series. So first game is on Jackie Robinson Day. I will not even go on that Major League Baseball Jackie Robinson rant right now. We do not have the time. But so the first game is newly acquired Jeff Springs versus Sean Burke. Sean Burke was our opening day starter. And then I know you guys will also see Jonathan Cannon and Davis Martin in this series. But what can you tell me about Jeff Springs, and then kind of what else we might see in this series pitching-wise?
Well, you should, if the rotation holds, you should see the A's 2, 3, and 4 guys, which will be Jeff Springs on Tuesday, Osvaldo Bido on Wednesday, and JP Sears on Thursday. Springs came over from Tampa Bay. He had the injury that he returned from very late in the season last year. And the concern with him last year was that his velocity was down. He was sitting below 90 on the four-seam fastball, which for him is no bueno. He's got to have that fastball to offset the other pitches in his repertoire. I saw him in spring training out in Mesa. He looked good. The secondary stuff was moving. I checked Baseball Savant before I hopped on with you here today. His fastball velocity is back to where it was pre-injury. Obviously, health is going to be the key with him. I believe as of this recording, he leads the A's in strikeout per 9 innings amongst the opening day rotation folks that were there at the very beginning. So I think that as long as he holds serve with how he's pitched this season, I think he's one of those guys that could be a real dependable rock in that number 2 spot. So from there, though, the balance of the probable starters, Osvaldo Bido, he's one of those kids that was on a lot of predicted breakout lists coming into 2025. And he pitched very well down the stretch for the A's. I think his last 6, 7, 8 starts were very, very good. He's been a little spotty. His last start against the Padres, he left a lot of pitches right out in front of the plate. And obviously the Padres, a very good offensive team. It was kind of a death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? I think they recorded a boatload of hits off of him and just enough runs to get the W. So he's a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. You kind of know what you're going to get with him pretty early in his outings. So if you guys can jump on him early, it could be a very long evening for A's fans. And JP Sears is oddly enough kind of the veteran presence as far as guys that have been there from the beginning. We got him from the Yankees a few years back, and he's been kind of a de facto number 1, even though he's probably closer to a 3 or 4 guy. Lefty, deceptively sneaky with a lot of his stuff, which I know people say about lefties all the time. So, but he's also been much like Vito and Springs. All three guys average about 5 innings a start. They've been solid, and that's pretty much all you can really ask for. I will say this much though, Crystal. The A's have an ERA in the first inning this year of 8.40. So if the White Sox can do some damage in that first inning and make the A's play catch up, it's been a problem all year for the A's, especially at home. Those first inning runs, those first inning home runs. So if they can avoid that, and if they can tighten that up a little bit, give the pitchers a chance to go 5-6 innings, turn it over to the bullpen. I think that's got to be the strategy and the game plan for the rotation coming into the series.
So I'm going to jump ahead a question, because one is, are there any fears heading into the series? Would you say that is the biggest fear you have, is just the White Sox jumping in early, or is there anything else that you're concerned about?
That would probably be at the top of the list. It's been weird to watch. They in that first inning, they're getting behind hitters. They're falling into hitters' counts, and they're just serving up meatballs, and these guys aren't missing. Now, to be clear, for example, at Sacramento, they played the Cubs, they played the Padres, they played the Mets, right? 3 very good National League teams, all 3 contenders, all 3 likely to be in playoff contention come September. But that's not to disparage any of the other teams in the league. You just can't pitch that way. And if you're throwing 3-1 counts to the number 1, the number 2, the number 3 hitters, they're going to hit ball far. And that's something the A's have to get better at. And I don't know what the answer is. And again, we could just be talking about small sample size or the quality of opponents or something. But I joked online. I'm like, I'm going to stop watching these games until the second inning, because it's just like the first inning has been unwatchable for this team. So that would be probably the biggest concern going in, because again, if you're pitching from behind to any person in a major league uniform, they're capable of hitting the ball a long way.
Yeah. So who on this A's team do you feel like might be the biggest threat to the White Sox right now? And this could be a pitcher, or this could be, just somebody with a bat in the hand that's going to be lethal.
You know what? Your bat in the hand description is a perfect segue for this answer. When I was on last summer, Lawrence Butler had an out of his mind July, and I picked him to answer that question, and I think he homered in the first game. So I was cheating a little bit by picking the hottest guy. But bat in hand, I'm going to do it again. Jacob Wilson is one of the most interesting, intriguing, unusual players in Major League Baseball right now. He's the son of Jack Wilson, who was a 12-year Major League veteran. I think Seattle, I think Pittsburgh, a few other teams. The A's acquired him in the 2023 draft, 6th overall pick from Grand Canyon University. He went to the minors. It was a rocket ship through the minors. He only played 79, 80 games in the minors, but he's got a career average in the minors of 401. He was out of his mind in the minor leagues. And the A's called him up at the All-Star break last year. He got his first major league hit in his first game. He immediately got hurt and missed most of the rest of the season. But his bat-to-ball skills are insane. The A's have never had a player like this before. He's built like a stick figure. He looks like he weighs 98 pounds. His face, he looks like he's 16. But he's just got this knack for putting the bat on the ball. And I'm of the mindset that he should be leading off, because he's batting in the high 300s. He's only struck out twice. Curiously enough, he doesn't have a walk this season. But if you look deeper at the numbers with this kid, his exit velocity is like about 85 miles per hour, which is like the 8th percentile. His bat speed is in the 1st percentile. These are terrible numbers, and numbers that don't necessarily lend themselves to major league hitters. But it works, or at least it's been working so far. And there are certainly exceptions to the exit velocity rule, right? Luis Arias here in San Diego is probably Exhibit A. But he's just got this way about him where he swings at everything, and the hits don't ever seem to go very far. I think he's got 2 home runs this year, but The hits by and large don't seem to go very far, but he finds holes. He hits it over fielders. He hits them where they ain't, so to speak. So he would be my guy, and he's going to be a really intriguing guy to watch for the Rookie of the Year conversation this year. And I just think that if he comes up with runners on base late in the game in this series, man, just watch where he can put it, because it's a sight to behold. And I've had a lot of fun watching him. I don't know if he can keep it up, just because I really think major league pitchers are going to challenge him more with fastballs, try to bust him inside a little bit more. But he's been fun to watch, and that's my guy. He's got a hitting streak now, I think, of 15, 16 games as we record this, and just keep an eye out for him, White Sox fans. I think that's the guy to you stop him. I think you got a good chance of handcuffing this offense.
I had to look him up. He really is just a very tall, lanky young boy.
It's funny too, because his defense was a little bit of a question mark coming into this season. He struggled a bit in a very brief major league time, but he's looked great. He's already doing that ridiculous Jeter jump throw thing that everybody loses their mind over. But when it's happening on my team, I love it.
Yeah.
This is what an acrobatic athlete this kid is. And
you're not like, oh, this asshole.
Oh man, it's like nice to actually have that skill set on my squad. So
yeah,
no, he's a lot of fun, and he's again, it's really highlights the youth of this team, just kind of the joyfulness. He's just one of those guys that's just like, wow, how did he do that? How did he make that play? How did he hit that ball, just out of the first baseman's reach? But again, small sample size, but he came with that pedigree as far as his bat to ball skills go, and so far so good.
Yeah, that's been our newest addition, Chase Meadroth, who he's been up for two games now, and the White Sox have already won this series against the Red Sox. And I was like, it's the Chase effect. He's just coming up, and it's just what we needed, apparently. Although one of our writers, Brian O'Neill, made a horrible dad joke because he walked a lot, and he was sent back down because he was walking a lot. Like he didn't make the opening day roster or anything. And they were like, work on that. Work on actually hitting the ball. And the first game he was in, he got a hit and 3 walks. And Brian was like, you could say that Chase is just not chasing. And I was like, I hate that I didn't come up with that so much, because that's brilliant. But yes, and like the baseball mom in me, the one who's watched her child just collect walk after walk after walk, is like internally screaming at Chase. I was like, just hit the ball, it's not that hard, swing the bat, like take it off your shoulder. So like internally I'm screaming, but at the same time I'm like, yeah, Chase, get on base, let's do this. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun to watch these rookies just play. They're always just a blast. I love it. So the keys to winning this series for the A's.
Well, we talked about the pitching staff. I think offensively, they've got some guys who are off to slow starts. Brent Rooker, most notably. I think he's got 4 home runs as we record this, but he's been just missing pitches that he was crushing last year. Mistake pitches, sliders right out over the plate, and I don't know if it's necessarily time to wave the red flag yet. He's one of those guys who can be very, very streaky, but getting him back on track, I think, is huge. He needs to hit for this team to win. Offensively, as far as some other spots go, the A's offense is just kind of really weirdly structured. Lawrence Butler, they've still got him leading off, even though he's not a leadoff hitter, and it drives me crazy, but he's been okay this year. I think he's hitting about 278, 279, somewhere in there, with a home run or 2. The rest of the lineup is just kind of there. They exhumed the remains of Gio Urshela at third base, and he's been abominable this year. And they keep trotting him out there, and I'm just like, even the glove The one thing that he was supposedly still had is just not been great. But to the A's, credit or lack thereof, they don't really have anyone else that can play there right now. Seeing guys like Shea Langoliers, who does two things well, hits bombs and has a torpedo cannon for an arm. Him actually kind of hitting a few balls over the wall would be nice. It's one of those things where as he goes, the offense kind of goes with him. I guess one of the other important keys is the bullpen. Mason Miller has been doing Mason Miller things. I'm not too terribly worried about him. But during spring training, they lost Michel Otanez, who was going to be penciled in as kind of the eighth inning guy. And with him out, they've had to kind of reshuffle the deck chairs. And you've got guys who are pitching in roles that I don't think they were going to be pitching in this season. Jose Leclerc has just been awful. He's got an ERA over 7. He looks done. I watched a game, I think it was with the Padres broadcasters, and they're like, this guy's got nothing on his pitches. And I'm just like, I know. Why are we still running him out there in high leverage situations? The rest of the bullpen is a bunch of guys. They got a kid, Noah Murdoch, Rule 5 guy. They brought TJ McFarland back. If you guys can get into that soft underbelly of our bullpen, yikes, because it's aside from Miller, it is a crapshoot and a half. So the bullpen's going to have to give them 3-4 innings every night. It's what we've been doing all season. It's been a real up and down roller coaster. Again, Miller's the only real constant out there. Everybody else, you just don't know what you're going to get from night to night.
Yeah, that's the White Sox bullpen is really similar. I have a lot of distrust in them right now. I have the game muted on in the corner, and the abuser was just on and threw like 10 pitches and sucked, and he already got pulled. So I love that for him, as I just made my charity donation. But yeah, our bullpen is not very trustworthy either. I like Bryce, and I like Cam Boozer a little. Like, if the ball's in their hands, then maybe they're going to be okay. But the rest of them, I'm just like, oh, let's take a step back. This is where we're going to blow this game. I mean, they opened the series with this Red Sox and an 11-1 win. And I was like, there's no way that the Red Sox can come up from this deficit, right? And then I'm just like, but I also just watched the abuser walk in a run the game before.
Yes.
So who knows what's going to happen? They could just completely implode on us. So those will be interesting to watch.
Oh, yeah. Particularly when you get two teams who have bullpens constructed like that. I mean, if you're not getting that depth, that quality, those quality starts out of your starters, the games can get ugly really, really fast. And a lot of people predicted before the season that the A's would be winning a lot of these 11-9, 12-10 games, and haven't had too many of those. But I feel like they're due, and this upcoming series would be as good a place as any to just have one of those ugly slugfest ones where everybody's ERA jumps by about 3 runs.
Yeah. Woof. So, moving away from our teams, it might be better to talk about other teams, because we are both in a sad state of baseball. It seems like just perpetual darkness. What other teams are you looking forward to? Like, what are your fun takes for this season?
Oh gosh, you know what? I am a very strong-willed, dyed-in-the-wool hater of the Angels. My distaste and disdain for them goes back to the early 80s. However, Ron Washington is a gem, and I can listen to him talk baseball for forever and a day. They signed the guy, Yoan Moncada, your guy, that I really thought the A's should look into, just because I understand the history with him. I understand the criticisms of him, but I just thought on a 1-year make good deal, that's the guy I would rather have. And if he stinks up the joint, no harm, no foul. You can move on from him pretty quickly. They've got this weird approach where they want to draft guys who are as close to the major leagues as possible, and they've been bringing these guys up with next to no, or in some cases no, minor league experience to try to just jumpstart that franchise. And Ron Washington, I believe, is in the last year of his contract.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a little more cantankerous than he usually is. I've seen some interviews with him, and he's thrown a few players under the bus over the last 18 months or so. But again, to be clear, Crystal, I would never root for those bums.
Yeah.
But they're a fascinating team to watch just because in the shadow of the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers who have signed everybody under the sun and have snatched Southern California baseball for their own. They're scraping by, right? And they're scraping by, right? They play in this ginormous media market, but they're making these signings. They're trying to push it all forward. I don't know if Ron Washington is going to be around to see it out. In fact, I think it's safe to say he probably won't. Yeah. But their approach has been fascinating this year, and I say that as somebody who, again, does not root for them, but they're scraping and scratching and trying to make something happen. So again, as a fan of those Moneyball Ace teams that were taking all of these mismatched parts to try to make something work, it's interesting to watch. I'm again not rooting for them to succeed, but it's interesting to watch.
It's tough because I love Ron Washington. I loved Yoan Moncada. I love Tim Anderson, and I love Mike Trout. But overall, I don't want the Angels to succeed. Like, I have trouble just in general with teams in California succeeding, although I was a Giants fan in my younger years because of Tim Lincecum and Buster Posey. Those were my guys. They will always be my guys. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to hate on that team because there are likable people, and they just got rid of cell phones in the dugout. Is that an old man cantankerous move on his part, or
Crystal? They when he did that, I went on to Blue Sky, and I was like, this is absurd. It's just, you can't tell these multi-million dollar salary guys they can't be on their cell phones. And people came all at me, and they're like, well, it really breeds togetherness and blah blah blah. And I'm like, this isn't sleepaway camp. These are grown men who should have their own agency. And I promise you, Crystal, that if Ron Washington is fired this year, which I would say there's a non-zero chance of that happening if the Angels hit a rough patch, the very first thing that new manager is going to do is reinstate the whole cell phone thing, and you're going to see all these stories about how it was infantile to treat the players this way and blah blah blah. Washington, man, the guy that he was as a coach with the A's and the Braves, a manager with the Rangers. I don't recognize that guy much with the Halos. To be clear, he got a crap situation.
He did. Yeah.
He came in, and unfortunately, it's one of those situations that black managers kind of always get offered. They get offered the crap jobs, right? He got a 2-year contract, which for a guy of his pedigree is kind of insulting. Mm-hmm. But nobody else was hiring him, so he took the gig. He took the money. Don't fault him at all for that. But it's going to be fun to see if this gig continues to wear on him, or if the Angels can enjoy a modicum of success. And we kind of see the more jovial, more free-spirited, old-timey baseball guy that he was, when in a couple of World Series over there with the Rangers.
The White Sox, on the other end, hired a very young guy, but also kind of gave him the shit end of the stick contract-wise, because we really don't have anybody. I mean, we've got Luis Robert Jr., who has been almost absent in this first month of baseball, but with Will Venable, he has been great. I actually really like what he's doing, and I think after Pedro Grifol was fired last year and Grady Sizemore came in and kind of took over in the interim, I think there was a really big shift in the players' attitudes, the vibes. They were like, okay, we're not dealing with, and I mean, this is still stemming from like the Tony La Russa days. It was like Tony, then Pedro. And it's like neither one of these guys were great for this team. And then they have like a younger guy that they can really get along with. And they really enjoyed Grady. And then they went to Will Venable, who's a younger guy who's been a lot of fun. So at least they are fun to watch now. Like they're terrible, but at least it seems like in the dugout, in the clubhouse, everything is at least in good spirits, even if they're going to lose 100 games this season.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's any small thing. I mean, I think you have to have a manager that can speak to the players of today. I'm of two minds. I really struggle with when these younger guys, these players that you and I watched not too terribly long ago, get to cut the line, so to speak. Stephen Vogt in Cleveland, and A's social media always kills me when I say this, but and I understand the success that he enjoyed last year, but he was a bullpen coach for 1 year, dude, and then he gets the job, and it's just like when guys like Benji Gill have been grinding it out for more than a decade and still can't land a job. Venable, a little more experience than Vogt had. And I remember watching the hiring process, and it was just one of those things where I don't think Venable was necessarily a favorite when he interviewed, but I think he wowed in his interview. And I watched him play. I watched him play out here. He's a thoughtful guy. He's just one of those guys who, and I hate, forgive the cliche, Crystal, but he's one of those guys who really made the most of his skill set. Not going to the Hall of Fame by any stretch of the imagination, but he was a pretty solid player for a good long time. And I think there's something to be said when it's like the expectations are so low. It's like, look, we're going to come in, we're going to just outwork everybody else. And coming from a guy like Venable, it matters because that was his entire approach. That was his entire career. I mean, obviously, he's got an MLB pedigree. His old man played in Major League Baseball. So I don't mean to slight him in the least, but credit to the White Sox. I think they found a voice, and maybe Venable isn't there at the end to see this whole thing through, but that matters with a team that was so miserable at times last year, and like, hey, clean slate, fresh start. Let's just kind of go out there and they get behind the guy, and honestly, it's half the battle.
Yeah, if they weren't going to give it to Grady, then Venable was going to be my pick, and I had a feeling. I mean, they kept Grady on. He's doing like defensive coordinating, which is great. I love him. I was an OG Grady's ladies in the Tumblr years. We're not going to discuss that at length, but those who know, so if they weren't going to give it to Grady, and I knew they wouldn't, then I was at least incredibly grateful that they gave it to Will Venable. And that he had experience, even if it was with those cheaters. He had some experience.
Well, Crystal, it's one of the things I kind of struggle with Mark Kotsay, the A's manager. He played for a very, very long time, a tremendous amateur pedigree as a college player, played for a long time as a Major League Baseball center fielder. He was Bob Melvin's bench coach for years and years and years, and was the manager in waiting. All A's fans kind of knew it. He was just extended this offseason, and I struggle with Kotsay on a lot of things because I think that he's a bit of a red ass, which I don't think is talked up enough, and I don't know if it's necessarily the right fit for a young team. The entire A's team showed up for his extension press conference, and that was a big deal, I guess. But my questions when I saw that, I thought about the players that he failed. Guys like Kristen Pache, Esteury Ruiz, Ryan Noda, guys who played for Kotsay and enjoyed some success and then regression, or just didn't produce at all. And he's not a touchy-feely guy. He doesn't, I don't think, really handle problems in the sense of players who are struggling with something in their skill set. And Brent Rooker notwithstanding, he's not really a fixer, right? Guys struggle and they kind of get off the rails, and it's just on to the next one. And I get it. It's a meritocracy, and you can't, devote all of your time, resources, and coaching efforts to fix one guy. But man, the way he kind of just wads up players and throws them away. James Kaprelian is another one. It doesn't get talked about at all. And I'm just like, I'm not sure about this. And plus, goddamn, he bunts too much. I swear to God. The bunting, the intentionally walking the bases loaded. He's got these little just quirks about him that drive me crazy as a fan, because it's like we're constantly setting up our guys to fail, and it's like, this is avoidable stuff. And again, I know that a lot of these decisions are made, the analytics department and all these things are discussed beforehand, but Kotsay is the one executing them, and he's the only person that I can point my finger at. So he's in it for the long haul. He's got the least desirable job amongst the 30-some managers in Major League Baseball. I get that, but you're not going to convince me that he's a good manager. He's just the A's manager, and so that's going to have to be good enough. He's here, I think, until 2028 or something was what his extension was, or something. But I'll be looking over in the White Sox dugout at Venable with a little bit of envy, because I would love to see a younger, fresher person of color in our dugout. The A's haven't had one in 125 years, which at some point you got to wonder if this is on purpose. How many more years before we have to ask if it's intentional? So anyway, but that's another episode of the.
Yeah, I was about to say. The two of us could go on mini side quests.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we will wrap up our before we go on many more side quests, and you're here 3 hours later. Again, thank you so much. I always love getting a chance to talk to you. Please just let people know where they can follow you. I know you're still on Twitter and you're on Blue Sky, so.
Well, yeah, and Crystal, thank you for the opportunity. I love the work you do. The Ricky and Billy Martin stuff that you've done as a old school A's head. It's gotten me through the work days, and I'm grateful for that. And the work you guys all do over there. But yeah, you guys can find me on the Cursed Bird app, Twitter, the Insect app, Blue Sky. I am at that bootleg guy, and happy to sit around and remember some guys from 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Again, that's how I kind of get through my day, and always looking to talk A's, White Sox, or any other team in the league.
One of my favorite games is Remember Some Guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. Obviously, best of luck in this series. I hope your A's stay warm. It's still a bit chilly in Chicago. But yeah, good luck.
All right. Rooting for you guys to win one. We'll take the other two.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Bye.